Om saha nāvavatu, saha bhunaktu, saha vīryam karvāvahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu mā vidvishāvahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we all be protected. May we all be nourished. May we do brave work. May our work be glorious. May there be no conflict among us. May there be peace. Peace. May there be peace. Welcome everyone. Can someone quickly confirm if they can hear and see me well? Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, like we did last week, today as well, we will first start with meditation, and then after meditation, we will go into our discussion on pratyāhāra, and after meditation, we can also discuss if anyone have any question at the end of the discussion. Okay, so make yourself comfortable. You can close your eyes. You can remove your spectacles if you wear specs. Keep your back, neck and head straight in one line, erect, and your hands in your thighs. I'll put a timer for 20 minutes. Keep your eyes closed. Breathe normally. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And one last time. Inhale and exhale. Let's quickly scan our body from top to bottom and release if there is any tension, any contraction in any part of the body as we go through each body part one after another. Let's bring our attention to the top of our head. To our ears, back of our head, our forehead, eyes, nose, cheeks, lips, chin, our throat, and back of the neck. Let the whole head relax and be at ease. Let's keep moving to our right shoulder, right upper arm, right elbow, right forearm, right wrist, palm, back of the hand, fingers, let the whole right hand relax. Now let's bring your attention to the left shoulder, left arm, left elbow, left forearm, left wrist, left palm, back of the hand, and fingers. Let's bring our attention to our chest region, our trunk, belly, abdomen, on both sides, let's bring our attention to upper back, shoulder blades, mid back, our spine, lower back, waist region, and hips. Let's bring our attention to the right thigh, right knee, right shin, right ankle, right foot, and toes. Let the whole right leg relax and bring your attention to left thigh, left knee, left shin, left ankle, left foot, and toes. Let the whole body relax. Acknowledge the present moment and acknowledge that we are in a safe space for our practice. Acknowledge your ability to stay seated for the rest of our practice, and acknowledge that the body is at rest. Now allow your mind also to rest. At this moment, acknowledge, I am nothing. I don't need to do anything. I don't want anything. Acknowledge that we can drop all intentions, all thinking processes, all planning, all analysis for rest of our practice. We can just be. This is the practice of not doing anything. If you find yourself lost in thoughts, return back to stillness. sarve bhavantu sukhinaḥ, sarve santu nirāmayāः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaśyid dukkhbhāg bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the merits of our practice be shared by all. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see good. May nobody ever suffer. May there be peace, peace, peace. Raise your hands. Rub your palm against each other. Cup your eyes with the warmth in your palm and slowly open your eyes. If anyone wants to share any experience, how they felt during the meditation, anything, they can join me on stage, they can talk or put their thoughts in the chat. Yeah. So let's resume our discussion on pratyāhāra. We have already discussed about yam, niyam, asana and pranayam, the 4 stages of Patanjali Yoga, or 4 out of 8 limbs of Patanjali Yoga. And these 4 are generally known as external organs of yoga, because most of these deal with things that we generally do in the space that we consider external, because we consider our body as the boundary of what is internal and what is external. So yama is social conduct, niyama is personal conduct. Asana again deals with the body, but you are not really using any internal parts of the body for that. Technically, you are contracting muscles and putting to move your limbs, you have to contract muscles and all, but it is externally visible what you are doing. Is still a lot of effect is on external parts. Same with pranayam. It's dealing with inhalation, exhalation, how we hold air within or how we hold air when completely exhaled out. It deals with how deep we breathe. It deals with how long we breathe. It deals with how many counts we breathe in certain situations. So depending on all that factors, there are a lot of different breathing exercises, a lot of different pranayams. Now we are dealing with pratyāhāra. And pratyāhāra is sometimes considered external limb of yoga, or sometimes also considered internal limb of yoga. But what is pratyāhāra? Pratyāhāra is generally translated as withdrawal of senses. Now, withdrawal of senses means what? Our sense organs are permanently outward facing. Our eyes can only see things which are outside our body. Our eyes cannot see anything which is happening inside. Similarly, our ears can hear sounds from outside. What we hear sometimes internally is mostly through conduction. Conduction is like when the sound travels through the medium, like when you put your head on the wooden bench and somebody taps the wooden bench, that's the sound traveling through conduction. So mostly that is conduction, but generally ear hear most of the things that is happening externally. Similarly, our tongue taste the sensation of touch and the sensation of being able to smell things. All of these are outward facing. Everything faces externally. So what do we mean by withdrawal of senses? Can we really move them inward? So an example that is given in Bhagavad Gita is the example of a turtle. So when a turtle senses that there is some kind of danger in the surrounding, then what it does, it pulls all of its limb inside the shell. That is the example that is used in Bhagavad Gita for pratyāhāra, withdrawal of senses. So it literally pulls all the limbs, head, tail, everything inside the shell, exoskeleton, and it protects itself. But can we do that with our senses? Can we pull our eyes inward, or what is it? What does it even mean? Can we pull our skin inwards, or what does it mean? It doesn't mean that we change the way these organs behave. These organs are external facing, facing the external, outward facing, and we are not really trying to make them inward facing or something like that. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to cut off its connection with our conscious mind. So what I mean by that is, there can be people who have eyes as the organ but are still not able to see, because some thing is wrong in the internal organs where the signals are processed. There can be people who have ear but they can still not listen, and there can be other cases also, like those who do not have external eyes. They have some kind of some kind of what should I say, some kind of different growth, and hence they may not have eye, or due to some accident or something, but they still can see. What they can see? They can still see visions. They can still see dreams, right? So what this example shows is that there is a disconnect between the organs and the ability to enjoy sense objects. So sense object is sight and organ is eyes, but eyes and sight are not one-on-one related, in the sense that if there is no eye, there will never be a sight, or if there is eye, there will always be sight. There is a disconnect, and not in only special cases, always in general cases also. When we go to sleep, all our organs are still outward facing, but we feel some kind of disconnect. Eyes are there, but we cannot see. You can say that, okay, we have our lids down and that's why we cannot see. A lot of people actually sleep with their eyes open. They can also not see when they sleep. Our ears are not shut when we are asleep, but we still cannot hear anything. Our sense of touch gets minimized to large degree. Small touch and mosquitoes and all, probably you won't even feel when you are sleeping. So there is a clear disconnect between the sense organ and ability to perceive. And this is what is meant by pratyāhāra, to control the ability of perception. So when you are sitting in meditation, when you are trying to meditate, you should have the ability to withdraw your senses to such an extent that it doesn't matter what is happening around. Even if your eyes are open, you can go in the state where it does not bother. The changing sight in front of you doesn't bother. The noise around you doesn't bother. And I think a lot of people might have had this experience. When they are deep in meditation, doesn't matter what is happening around, what kind of and what level of noise is there around. So that is what is meant by pratyāhāra, withdrawal of senses. You cannot make your senses inward facing, but what we can do is to control our ability to perceive. What we can do is disconnect our conscious mind from all this continuously pouring in inputs from the senses. There, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra actually defines pratyāhāra as the drawing in of the organs is by giving up their own objects and taking the form of the mind stuff as it were. This is the definition of pratyāhāra. Swa-vishaya samprayoge chitta swarūpānukār ivendriyanam pratyāhāraha. What does this mean? The first part we can understand with the discussion that we had, withdrawing of senses, and by giving up their own objects. So sight is the object of eyes. So when we give up that, then what we do is we basically accept that in next few minutes or whatever be the duration of our practice, we are not going to acknowledge any sight. That's the giving up of the object. Similarly, we are not going to acknowledge any sound or any smell or any sense of touch. That is what is meant by giving up of the sense objects. And next, what it says, that when one does that, then the organs take the form of the mind stuff. This is another important thing. What happens in pratyāhāra? If you can really do pratyāhāra properly, then what happens? What happens is that whatever is going on at that moment in your mind, all your sense organs start amplifying that. So if you are thinking of something and you completely are disconnected from external inputs, then that thought will be picked up by your perception of vision, and you will start seeing your thought as clear vision. That thought will be picked up by your perception of sound, and you will start hearing sound associated with that thought. That is what a dream is. When we go to sleep and when we cut our sense organs from the perception, from ability to perceive external objects, then this ability to perceive turns inward, and whatever thought comes up in the mind, it takes each thought one after another, and all of these 5 sense organs tries to identify with it and produce related perceptions. That is what is meant by this line when in Yoga Sutra Patanjali says that the drawing in of organs, or by their giving up their own objects and taking the form of the mind stuff. So our senses at this point start taking the form of the mind stuff. This is very important. Why this is important? Because you can create your own reality if you understand this concept. If you can really disconnect from external continuous input, you can create your own reality. And why pratyāhāra is at this point in the practice, at the 5th stage, is because an untrained mind, when taught this particular practice, can create realities which can be disturbing and harmful for them. That is where, if you understand, that is where the first 2 stages of yoga, yama and niyama, truthfulness, non-violence, that practice, by this time it is expected, by the time a student is taught the practice of pratyāhāra, it is expected that they already have gained good level of understanding of yama and niyama. So their mind is already purified to a certain level. We also have already discussed how important is surrender to God, or Ishwar Pranidhan, and we also have already discussed that Ishwar Pranidhan is the fastest way to samadhi. Now, with all this background understanding and all this already being practiced and experienced, when a practitioner reaches the stage of pratyāhāra, with this understanding that when you cut off your sense organs from external inputs, your sense organs start taking the form of the mind stuff. Now you can recall Ishvara or God in whatever form you want, and God will be available to you as if you are seeing the God for reality. Your eyes, because they have been shut off from the external input, will start taking the form of the mind stuff. So as soon as you turn your attention toward the thought of God or Ishwar or a particular deity, that deity appears in front of you in a form that eyes can grasp. You can start hearing the voice of the deity in the manner that your ear can grasp. You can start feeling the touch of their hands and all that. That is what real pratyāhāra can lead to. And that is why we are discussing it in this fashion. First dealing with yama and niyama, then asana, then pranayam, then pratyāhāra. Because if we just pick and choose one from one place and another from another place, it doesn't work that way. It can become harmful as well. So at the same time, one should also understand, if somebody is not able to practice pratyāhāra, that also means that somewhere down the line they have not put enough practice in one of the previous steps. But not going into that detail, also if we start thinking on a more surface level, we can understand pratyāhāra as removal of distraction. When I say withdrawing the senses, that is essentially removal of distraction, because in the next stages in dharana, dhyan, samadhi, we are further going to use this space by removing the distraction, by removing or cutting off our sense organs from external stream, right? What we are trying to create is a space for something important to happen, in the practice that we did today and the practice that we did in the last session. Our focus was to not associate our attention to anything, either be it sound or even our own thoughts, or even the breathing, the observation of breathing. We were not trying to keep our attention attached to anything. I think there is a similar practice which is called sikanza, where you just sit. And that is what we were trying to do. We were trying to create that space. We were trying to bring about that stillness from where great things can emerge. So, in general life also, if you want to succeed in any activity, the first thing you need to do is remove all kind of distraction. If you want to study for, say, 2 hours, it's really very difficult if you keep your phone just beside your books. So you have to do something about it. You have to maybe retire into a room away from the living room where maybe television is running or something, or friends have come over or something, right? So you need to create that space by reducing the distraction, and that is what pratyāhāra is about. On external world, you can do that by removing some external elements from your surrounding, but internally you have to do that by withdrawing your senses. And there is a very good verse in Vivekachudamani, which is one of the help texts for Advaita Vedanta, written by Adiguru Shankaracharya. Very nicely, he writes in that the problem that arises when you cannot have control over your senses. So he writes that the deer, the elephant, the moth, the fish, and the black bee, these 5 have died being tied to one or the other of the 5 senses, namely sound, etc., through their own attachment. What then is in store for man who is attached to all these 5? Very apt comparison is made here. What he's trying to say is deer. In olden days, people used to go for hunting deers, and one of the tricks to bring out deer from their dens or wherever they used to hide, one neat trick was to play some kind of melodious music. So they would play flute, or they would play some kind of melodious drums or something. And deer, the sense of sound, deer is so much attached to that sense of sound that it would come out to see what is happening, what is the thing that is creating this kind of melodious sound, and that's when they would hunt the deer. That's how deer reaches its end, by being attached to the sense of sound. Similarly, he gives an example of elephant. So elephant has a very strong sense of touch. So what elephants do, they will always walk in herd, rubbing their body against each other. So this becomes a reason for their end. What hunters would do, they will dig one big hole, and because they know that elephants will keep coming together, rubbing their skin against each other. One elephant falls down, the other does not have enough time to even think, because they are in so close contact with the first elephant that they all fall one after another into the ditch. Similarly, the moth Moth has such a strong sense of sight that whenever it sees a bright light, it keeps running towards it. It doesn't run, it starts flying in that direction, and we know what happens to the moth. It runs towards the bright light. Now we have cool lights, so moths are safe, but in olden days, most of the moths used to die just because of their attachment to the sense of sight. Similarly, the fish has very strong attachment to the sense of taste. So all the tricks to catch fish, is by putting some kind of bait for it. And black bee has a very strong sense of smell. So it can smell a flower from very far distance, and it will come, in that direction from where the smell is coming, and that's where they meet whoever is waiting for, that black bee. So all these 5 have died being tied to one or the other of the 5 senses. So Shankaracharya says that all of these 5 are just attached with one of their senses, or maybe more, and they die because of that. And we human are peculiar because we are attached to all of the 5 senses, not just one. So he says, what there is in the store for man who is attached to all these 5. So that is how he explained the problem that can happen if you stay attached to these senses. It is not actually being said that you completely renounce all sense enjoyments, but it is being said that you never be tied to them. You can use your senses for all the good things that you want to do, all the responsibilities that you have to take care of. You can keep using your senses for all of that. Even a little bit of enjoyment is fine, as long as you are not tied to those senses. Because if you are tied to those senses, then we have several examples in the nature that shows us what happens to those who are tied with the senses, and that's what is point of Shankaracharya. So that is why the practice of pratyāhāra is that important. Without creating space, you cannot bring anything new in your home, right? If your home is already jam-packed with stuff, how can you bring something? However good that thing may be, but you have to make space for it, and to be able to make that space is pratyāhāra. When you stop or when you withdraw your senses inwards, that means when you stop that continuous flow of information, that's when you create that space where something magical can happen. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjun asks Sri Krishna that controlling mind is even difficult than controlling air. How do I do it? Then Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that it can be done by practice and renunciation. The same exact thing is also said in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, that with practice and renunciation one can reach samadhi. So practice is definitely repeating certain stuff again and again. That is what we have been doing, right? But one other thing that sometimes is omitted, a lot of time it is omitted because it does not sound very, trendy, is renunciation. Now, what is renunciation? It's important to understand renunciation to be able to really practice pratyāhāra. Renunciation is not actually leaving stuff physically and physically making a distance between those. Like not leaving your house is not real renunciation, or leaving stuff that you have acquired. A real renunciation is when you really acquire things. and those things do not acquire you. That's what is real renunciation. You may be living amidst all the luxuries and all the distractions, but if you can still remain untouched by them, you can use them as per your convenience, but they should not be able to force themselves on you. That's what is the real renunciation. And that is why Lotus is a very important symbol in Hinduism, obviously, but I think in Buddhism also it is a very important symbol. Why? Because lotus stays in mud. So there will be some layer of mud and then a very shallow layer of water on top of it, and then on top of it will be the leaf of the lotus, and on top of that will be the lotus flower. And the attribute of lotus petal or that leaf of the lotus also is water does not stay on top of it. If you pour water, it will look like pearls and it will just roll down that leaf. So that is the illustration, or that is the illustration that is used everywhere to explain renunciation. We have to live in the world as if we are lotus. As lotus lives in contact with water, still water does not stay on top of it. So similarly, the person who stays in the world and still does not let the world or the things govern that person, right? That is real renunciation. So when we are trying to do pratyāhāra, when you try to detach your senses, you will see that one or the other thing will keep coming again and again in your mind. That we should recognize as an attachment. If that one thing is not leaving any space for us to live in stillness, that means it is the time to limit our interaction with that one thing a little bit. Not completely renounce or something, right? But limit. You understand that this is one thing that is going to become a trouble in my progress further. So you limit a little bit of your interaction with that. Then you will see something else will come up and you limit a little bit on that. And that's how you practice pratyāhāra. Over time, what will happen is, over time you will be able to recognize everything. As soon as you interact, you will know that, okay, this has a certain kind of effect on my mind that will be problematic when I will go into the session. You will have that kind of clarity and perception. So you can stop right at the root. But this will only happen if you already have practiced pratyāhāra for some time. And you already have developed that level of sensitivity, that level of power of recognition, that this kind of interaction leads to attachment. So that is about pratyāhāra. I think that discussion we can close this discussion on pratyāhāra at this point, but really going forward we will start discussing dharana, dhyan, and probably we will also discuss samadhi, but samadhi is not really a topic of discussion. So we may also end our discussion on Patanjali Yoga Sutra after dhyan or meditation with some basic understanding of what samadhi is. But yeah, I think that should be it for today. If anyone has any question on what we discussed so far, they can raise their hand, join me on stage, or type in the chat. Okay. If there is no question, no speaker, then we will close this And thank you everyone for joining me today. Hope to see you all next week. Let's close this session. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.